I'm Suzy Vance, creating from the heart the artistry of living, and I'm here with Donavan Barrier. He's a poet.
Thank you. Thank you for
Okay.
having me.
Donavan, when we say you're a poet, what do we mean?
Well, exactly what it says on the tin. I write poetry. I've had several of my work published in different forms, the Polk Street Review, and I just found out that I have some other work being published in the for the Indiana State Library.
Really?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I got a notice this morning from the Indiana Archives, and I'm going to read it to you as we speak right now.
All right.
It says here that my work was selected to be included in the Inverse Poetry Archive hosted by the Indiana State Library.
Yay!
Thank you. Thank you so much.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Quite the poet.
Thank you.
This is great.
Yeah.
How'd you get into this?
Well, it's kind of a long and convoluted story.
Oh, they all are.
Yeah.
But I love them, so
Yeah.
tell me.
So when I was coming up, my first poem I wrote when I was 10, I think. It was for a class, and it was for a going away of a teacher in my middle school at the time. But when I became 12 years old, I fell in love with hip hop music. And I decided that day I wanted to be a rapper. And so I was writing songs all day, not paying attention to my classwork. But then my mother actually, went to the Michigan City Public Library a few years later and got a book of poetry from a Chicago-based poet called Kevin Koval. And that book was titled Elvis Lives. And basically what it is, it's an anthology of poems that follow the character Elvis, who is a white kid growing up in Chicago who's trying to make it into the hip hop scene. And he doesn't write like the traditional rap song. He writes it in his own form of poetry, free verse and all that jazz, and it tells a story. And something about that stuck with me, and I decided, you know what, I want to meet this guy. So I found out that he was the founder, of the largest regional poetry slam in the world called Louder Than a Bomb. At one point it was called Louder Than a Bomb. Now it's called Young Chicago Authors. And so I decided I wanted to go do that. I wanted to do it when I was 13, but it didn't take off as much as I wanted to, because the guys I wanted to do it with, they had their own lives, and we just couldn't make it work out. So when I was 14, freshman in high school, I got some of my teachers together who were my English professors, and we started working together. And I was one of the only kids from Northwest Indiana to perform there.
Whoa!
Yeah, I was performing as an independent.
Yeah.
I was representing LaPorte High School. I participated, I competed 2-3 times before I eventually got voted out, and that was okay. You know, it was the experience of it. I did get to meet Kevin Koval, but I put poetry off until I got to college. And it was then I realized, you know, poetry and how I thought about it before was not, the way I was looking at poetry was not correct.
Oh, tell me how you were looking at it.
Well, growing up, the only poetry I liked was hip hop music, and I thought that was the kind of poetry to go. And I didn't understand or wasn't aware of the kind of people that were into poetry. It wasn't until I got to college that I realized that poets don't always have to fit in a certain box. Because the slam poetry that I listened to, it was a lot of heartfelt, you know, you hurt me, I hurt you, or all that kind of stuff. And that has its place. It has its place, but it just wasn't speaking to me as it should have been. So I fell away from poetry. I became disillusioned with it. But when I got to college, I went to Purdue Northwest, formerly Purdue North Central. I discovered that there were poets out there who were the kind of men that I wanted to emulate. They were soldiers. I fell in love with, and so it was then I fell in love with war poetry. I started reading the poems of Rupert Brooke, Siegfried Sassoon, Alan Seeger, and Joyce Kilmer. They were all soldiers of the First World War representing England and the United States. And their poetry spoke to me. Because yes, while some of them had love poems, especially Rupert Brooke, if you ever read Rupert Brooke, you should definitely see that. He was no stranger to love. He wrote about experiences in war. Siegfried Sassoon, one of his counterparts, was a war poet as well, but he also wrote about the horrors in the trenches, that the soldiers had to deal with during that entire period, which I would not want on anybody. Alan Seeger was an American poet who was one of the first American casualties in the First World War because he went to fight for the French Foreign Legion, which is a branch of the French
Right.
army made up entirely of foreigners. And he wrote the poem, I Have a Rendezvous with Death. And
He did.
Yes. And he was unfortunately killed at the Battle of the Somme. But that kind of poetry, for a young man like me, really spoke to me. It showed that, it doesn't have to be this very closed, it doesn't have to just be about your emotions and my heart is broken and all that stuff. It can be about real things. And that's the kind of poetry I gravitated to. And that's why I started writing poetry again.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so when did you start writing it?
I started writing again when I was 19,
Uh-huh.
maybe 18. But it really took off when I had some work published in the magazine called Furnace.
I don't know Furnace.
Furnace was the magazine that PNW was going around. It was a student-organized magazine of poetry, fiction, essays, nonfiction, photography, and all that. And I decided on a whim I'm going to send in some work. And I did.
Uh-huh.
And wouldn't you know it, I got an award for first place in undergraduate poetry for that reason.
Nice.
Yeah. I still have it up on my wall this day. It's one of my best accomplishments.
Good for you. And so today, how do you do this? How do you incorporate it in your life?
The way I incorporate poetry into my life is I'm always listening, and I'm always observing things. My full-time job is a journalist, and it's my job to make sure that I am observant of certain things so that way I can write the best story. And so I incorporate in my life whenever I make sure that I try to be as present as I can. Mm-hmm. I know that sounds a little bit, so it sounds a little bit corny, but you have to in order to create a product. Uh-huh. You have to be able to observe things and see things in a different way in order to get those creative juices flowing.
Yes.
And so but if that doesn't work out, sometimes I will just think about my own feelings. I will think about certain things that happened to me in the past, certain people that were in my life but are no longer in my life and who have left an impact on me, or certain situations in my life that left an impact on me, whether they were positive or negative, and draw on those feelings. Mm-hmm. Because poetry for me is an escape. Again, that's another corny thing, but it's one of those ways where I can actually understand what I'm feeling.
Yes. So in that sense, it's not necessarily an escape, but an owning at the same time.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it. Like, instead of trying to get away from my feelings, I try to own them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Try to really understand what that's about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Whatever that is.
Yeah. And wouldn't you know it, that's actually, in a way, I wouldn't call it a lifesaver, but it's definitely like made my life better knowing that I can put my emotions to words so that way I don't have to bottle them up all the time.
Oh, what a sweet thing to say. That is so fabulous.
Thank you.
Say that again.
I don't know if I can, but poetry for me is a way of owning whatever it is I'm feeling so that way I don't have to bottle it up all the time.
And put it away. Mm-hmm. That's right. You keep it moving. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting. A long time ago, I had the precious occasion to meet in a smaller group of people, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And she said, when she was talking to us, that physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, those are the things that we humans grapple with. And the physical and the spiritual and the mental we've got down. It's the emotional that we are still learning about. And what a great way to learn about emotion. Writing poetry.
Yeah. The way I see it, emotional intelligence is very much misunderstood. Mm-hmm. It's very misunderstood because when I was coming up, as a young adult male, mm-hmm. you're taught to, stop acting that way. Stop with the emotions, stop with the tears. Don't be like that person. Just be strong, be a man. Even if they have the best intentions, it sends a lot of negative or confusing feedback. Like, well, what am I supposed to do with it? So, and at first, before I got into poetry, writing poetry, I wasn't really sure. So yeah, I'll admit I was one of those angry young men who kind of shunted away from that kind of of learning about myself, because I thought, oh, well, if I do, well, what am I? What am I? Some kind of, pardon my language, some kind of sissy? You know what I mean? Uh-huh. But
there is a lot of that judgment.
Mm-hmm. But I've learned, and I'm still learning, and I fail at it every day, to understand that if you know how you feel, the better you're able to adapt. Because you can't control how you feel. You can control how you work with it.
And how you respond.
Mm-hmm. And how you respond. Uh-huh. And that just makes you a better person. It makes you feel better. Mm-hmm. It makes you, it takes a lot of that pressure off of you.
Right.
Right. So it's
not so out of control anymore.
Yeah. It's not so I want to get in touch with those emotions, not because of that stereotypical, mm-hmm. mama's boy thing, but it's more of an act of survival. You know what I mean?
You want to know yourself.
Yeah. So that way I can be here another day.
There you go.
Right?
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
And so poetry, again, is that way of helping me, understand myself.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. So tell me this. How are you using your poetry every day besides for yourself? Are you using it in your daily being, or do you use it at work?
Yes, I do. I'll give you an example.
Great.
So I went through a 6-month academy at the Multi-Agency Academic Cooperative. And what that is it's a place in Valparaiso where police officers and firefighters and first responders get training. I was put through that academy because I signed up to join a volunteer fire department, and I'm still a volunteer firefighter to this day. I incorporated poetry into my daily life because it was a way of helping me stay in the moment and be relaxed. We were going through this exercise where we were in a smoked out room. Simulated smoke, it wasn't real smoke, so there was no danger of smoke inhalation. And we had to learn how to stay calm under pressure and do a room by room search.
Okay. To
search for victims and to search for potential ways of escape and mapping out the house that we were in. Now, before, when we were first getting into this, I got what was called tunnel vision, where I just wanted to get it done, get it quickly, and get out as fast as I could. I didn't allow myself to take a breath, get in the moment, and actually do my due diligence.
Interesting.
I didn't understand the idea of slow is smooth and smooth is fast. But then my instructor, talked about how he would hum to himself when he was inside a house in order to keep himself calm, and he would talk. Okay, this is what I'm doing right here. I'm going to go here. How are you doing? What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. So I thought that stuck with me. And so I'm going to try to incorporate that into my practice. I failed a lot, but there were moments in that exercise where I would think about a certain poem, like If by Rudyard Kipling, and I would say it to myself in between breaths. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And which is more, you'll be a man, my son. And wouldn't you know it, that helped me so much.
I love this. Have you passed this on?
I have not.
What are you waiting for?
Somebody to ask. When people,
No.
Well, it's just something I learned, and I don't try to. It's only like when people ask. If someone say, "Hey, I'm having trouble with this. What do you think I should do?" And then I'll give them the experience that I went through, and hopefully they learn. Hopefully they take it to heart. Hopefully they at least chew on it. But
I think you need to speak to volunteer firefighters.
well,
I'm serious.
Well, the only reason I'm a little hesitant to is I'm what's still called a probationary firefighter. And what that is, are you aware of that?
No.
So what a probationary firefighter is, it's a firefighter, but they're on a period of up to 12 to 18 months. Mm-hmm. And in that 12 to 18 months, your superiors observe you, see how you are, and look at your positives and look at your negatives, and then at the end of that year, they can make a choice. Do we want to keep you here, or or is that the end of your firefighting career? This is what I've learned, and I realize that I still have a long way to go. So before I feel like I can be confident enough to teach, I have to be confident enough to learn, because there's so many things that I have to learn. Mm-hmm. And in firefighting and even in poetry, there are so many things. There is never a point where you're at the top of your game. Ever. While I believe there's a point where you feel confident enough to teach, you're never going to be at the top.
Confident enough to share.
Yes. So I still realize I still have a few things to learn before I can feel confident enough to give advice like that. But I'm still open to giving that advice if anybody would ask, but I don't want to assume yet.
I got it. Well, I sure hope you keep trucking, because we need to read more of this. Can we read any of your poetry?
Yes. Some of my poetry has been published in the Polk Street Review. I think it was in this previous quarter. It has been published in the Spill the Ink magazine, which is a poetry magazine based in South Bend. They just had their first distribution recently. And, excuse me.
It's okay.
You'll find it in the Indiana State Archives when it comes out in a couple of weeks.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yes. I also am a writer for a magazine called Panoply Michiana.
I know Panoply.
Yeah, I'm a writer for that. We publish every quarter, and we do it about artists. That's pretty much my shtick. I do profile pieces on artists. And when I interview artists, I do it because art is one of my subjects. It's one of my things. I tried running from it when I was younger, but now I'm just accepting it. I was and still am an artistic kid. Different kind of art, of course.
We all are.
Yeah. But when I speak to these artists, I like to hear their perspective, because something about them, they're very in tune with how they feel. And so they express that through their art. There's definitely a logical way to get their art produced. They have to know geometrics. They have to know how to properly make a circle. They have to know the specific heat that a kiln needs to be before they put a piece of pottery into it to make something. But they do so in a way, they find that logic in a way that defies logic, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Kind of a weird juxtaposition there. And I just love to hear about it. I love to hear about it because it keeps me sharp. Mm-hmm. Every time you hear that part, every time you get something in your head that makes you go, oh, it gives you that feeling.
Yeah.
You know?
That feeling.
Yeah, didn't think about that before. Didn't realize that that's how that worked. You know, it keeps you sharp. And if you don't have that, you lose it.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. So I love that job.
This
Dan,
is
if you ever watch this, you're a great publisher.
Well, how can somebody find you if they want to chat with you about your poetry?
Well, I am on social media.
Okay.
I might not respond to you right away. Donavan Barrier, that's my Facebook profile. I'm also on Instagram. I have an Instagram page called pen.and.picture, which is just where when I take photos and when I'm out on the job and I have some free time and I use my camera, I like to put them there because I like how it looks and I like how it's composed. And so that's where I put a lot of my photography there. I'm also on LinkedIn as well, just regular old Donavan Barrier. And but I also have my own personal Instagram page, which is it's a joke, but it's not.dead.yet89, and it's a Monty Python reference. And dead is spelled D-E-D.
I got it.
Just so I don't take up too much space. You know what I mean? That's my personal Instagram page.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hope people will check you out. This is absolutely fabulous. And if you need your pot stirred to get your juices going, I'm suggesting that you connect with this guy. Okay. Suzy Vance, Creating from the Heart, the Artistry of Living. Thank you so much for sharing, Donavan.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
This is a great opportunity to talk.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay. See you next time.
Take care.